You're with it. Raptors by 4. Pull up, 3, and it's good from Young's point.
Together. Right now they're trying to get Rudy Gay acclimated.
Step back shot, tough, buried it. Gary Trent Jr. showing.
Rose taken away. Here's Trent Jr. sprinting ahead. Right to the rim, the finger roll. Here's Trent Jr. Bridges on him. And that is a tough shot.
Anunoby. Siakam with Herder back. Goes to the corner to get Trent. Too late. In the NBA, this scrambling Toronto defense has been terrific. Trent. Another 3 seconds. Here's Trent. Another one at the buzzer.
6 minutes. That would make 50 for the Jazz. We may not get there, but man, they've been able to get some wide open ones. Wow.
Gary Trent Jr. may toss him in.
Looking through screens, Levine stuck right with him. Now chasing, and Trent gets the good mid-range jump shot.
That wingspan allows him to play against bigger guys.
Nice pick by Gary Trent Jr., and he draws the contact from Dosunmu.
Ain't no fun though, man. 52-50 Raptors. Here's Gary Trent Jr. Second free throw doesn't go for ball. Trent Jr. to the rim in the finish. Here's Pascal, makes a move, deflected. Gary Trent Jr. and 1. Along with the fact that Boucher, instead of having 3 fouls, has 2.
Yep.
And you get the bucket there.
Trent to Scotty Barnes.
It's a nice cut. One of the few.
So great for this Jazz offense. You hit one guy, there's another guy more wide open.
Trent Jr. Stunner step, hit twice, and he's able. And Fleet to Pascal. Over to Trent Jr. We got a game!
November 1st, 26 points.
Fred drive, kick. Trent Jr. the 3.
Pops out, and the Jazz give it away again as Donovan is slow off the floor. Trent Jr. for 3.
Fred right in front of Nick Nurse. Over to Trent Jr. He lines it up, and the 3 is good.
6 seconds on the shot clock. You're going against the shot clock now. A lot of times it's going to end up with a jump shot. But you're not mad if Gary Trent Jr. has the ball in his hand at the end of the shot.
1 rebound away from a TD. 3 is good.
3 straight giveaways by the Jazz. Gary Trent Jr. for 3. Buries it.
That's a standpoint. Van Vliet sends it now to Trent Jr. in the circle. Jay, good. 20-7 to run overall. Gary Trent Jr.
And that's flipping young players. You know, all that takes time.
Yeah, for sure. And that's part of the process.
Back over to Trent Jr. He comes and slips the screen. Trent Jr. over Shea. Oh, 15 from the field. 2 of 7 from 3. Gary Trent Jr. in the circle, and he rattles it in.
Strus picks up Gary Trent. Oh, that man's on fire today.
As a head coach of the Toronto Raptors, Gary Trent Jr. Oh, that is sweet.
He has 9 points here in the first quarter. 5 on the shot clock. Trent Jr. over Hero. Another bullseye.
They had all of 34 in the first half against Portland. Here's Trent Jr. The 3 is good.
Scored Toronto 55-13. Led by Rudy Gay. Trent Jr.
imposing his will early on.
Here's Gary Trent Jr. and Trent Jr.
Siakam. Corner 3 for Trent. Can't leave these guys open. And the rebounding you were talking about, Nick. Toronto, despite undersized, they are number 2 in the league in offensive rebound possession.
It's uncontested to the rim. Lost the handle, flipped it out to Donovan, who misfires from outside.
Rule on Monday night. Boucher and Banton are both in. Here is Trent for 3.
Berg sets a screen. Royce chases.
Coming out of the defensive end here. DeRozan trying to stick with Anunoby, who sets up Gary Trent for 3. I love his jump shot.
I'll tell you what.
Fred picked up by Dort. clock down. Gary Trent Jr. can get his and kicks it out to Watanabe. Trent Jr. rattles in and Fred turns the corner. Trent Jr. 5 on the clock. At the end of the clock.
Anunoby buried in the corner, finds Trent with a cross-court pass, and he puts in another three, his 8th.
Makes a quick move, double comes, finds a shooter, Gary Trent Jr.
3-on-1 fast break. Back in the day, you'd have guys filling the lanes, looking for a layup. Now you're spreading the floor. Look.
Rudy picks up his first assist. That's one he'll remember. Follow-away jumper.
Hill picks up Siakam. Vucevic with the help, almost a triple team. Out to Trent for a triple.
Oh,
and
my
that's
goodness.
Another one for Gary Trent.
I feel like they got to make a change right now for Toronto because Malachi
Way down to make the catch.
Good observation. That's really important. You're going to drive and kick to a shooter, hit him in the shooting pocket.
info, Matt, Jack.
Shot clock down to 4. Gary Trent Jr. finds space in the 3.
Hit pair of excellent defensive plays here. A deuce on the defensive end. Trent Jr. with a deuce.
Champagny being ejected.
And this is when you let your offense work for you, or you find
The glass batted out. Here's Fred. No. And Barnes being held down. Gets the rebound. Gary Trent Jr. the lead. Scotty Barnes on the bench as well as Ken Birch. Raptors without 3 starters tonight. And Trent Jr.
Tip, but to Barnes, not a Trent. This has been the hot guy. Another 3. This one good again for Trent.
In Fort Erie, you guys would have been out of there in a hurry if Ed put up 31.
the first thing smoking.
Trent Jr., he was hunting for it. He finally came up with a steal. What a play by Gary Trent Jr.
So ball on the defensive end because he's forced to guard smaller guys.
That one was too easy.
11 and 11 on the road. We mentioned they're coming off that big triple overtime win against the Heat in Miami. Trent will hit another. That's his
All time. 66-53. 2:40 to go. Gary Trent Jr. Step back. Jumper. Rozier.
The defense guarding you.
Oh, because with the ability to post up and score down there, had a nice shot by Trent.
Chua did everything he could on the initial surge, and DeMar has that deep bag to go into. Gary Trent Jr.
His last game and now has looked very impressive.
Oh, what a shot by Trent. OG at 6'7", using that length for the block that time. Trent dribbles into the 3.
Oh, wow.
What a shot by Gary Trent.
And he's hurt.
He is down.
Oh, my. Gary Trent Jr. buries a 3. What a...
first of 2 matchups this week with the Raptors. Will be in Toronto Friday night. Trent for 3. Bottom.
Ayodo Sumu, Boucher, the lone bench man for Toronto with 4 starters. Trent, tough shot around 2 defenders.
I love when he gets his mid-range game going. Jab step jumper there for Bam.
To go in this building, on this channel. Trent Jr. behind his back into the paint. Oh, Robinson's pass behind Tucker, stolen by Trent Jr. And he converts. For the running Barnes, back to Fred, over to Trent Jr. And he knocks down the 3.
The basketball, they've been less deliberate. Good quick movement there by Caleb for 3.
Trent Jr., he has been...